Okay, welcome everybody to Launch Class Lesson number 7. We are glad you're here. I think this is a very important one, that's my personal opinion, because we are going to talk about marriage and parenting strategies. And as we get into the other slide, you'll, well, I guess we'll get there in a minute. I tend to think, a lot of people have said this, that families are the foundational building block for our society. And marriage and parenting, so it's the whole family together we're talking about. Where marriage goes, that's where the kids go, that's where the family goes, that kind of thing. So one of our desires in Launch Class is to help strengthen families, reduce the divorce rate, that kind of thing. So last week we talked about how to find and choose a good mate, which is the first step in having a good marriage. And today we're talking about marriage and parenting because they tend to go together. So not in depth, but some good solid ideas for strengthening marriages. So once again, welcome. We're glad you're here. We're glad you have an interest in learning and growing, and in this case, improving your family, and perhaps letting others know about what's going on here at Launch Class. So we commend you for being here. We believe in you. That's why we're here. We're voluntary. My name's Coach Al, and other coaches have a similar name tag. We are here for you. We're excited about you being here and helping you to launch more successfully in your family, in your career, in your health, relationships, things like that. And so get to know us. We're your coaches, and we're your #1 cheerleaders, and we've been where you are, and we want to help you navigate these treacherous waters called life. And I can remember back when I was in my early 20s, I wish I had a class like this. That's kind of where the idea comes from. What do we wish as older adults, which we had when we were your age? Launch Class is what we've come up with. So it's all about you today. You've heard it said it's not about you. Well, today it's about you, so be happy for that. And allow us to help you. There's a survey that came with your little packet there. Give us some ideas of what you think you would like to see in Launch Class that would help us to help you. So we'll often refer in Launch Class to this diagram here. This diagram we call the Life Choices diagram. It was developed over a few years in our men's group, but it applies to everybody. It's not just for men. And so it's a life choices. So over here we talk about choice. Here's you or me, and we make choices. Life squeezes us. We have a lot of pressures. Could be these pressures over here, which we'll touch on: financial pressures, relational pressures, health pressures, you name it. Peer pressure is a good one. Life squeezes us, and God's always pressing up and trying to encourage us to go in a good direction. So we get squeezed, and we have to make a decision. We can turn left and call it escape, to what we have fun, food, pleasure, but that's wasting time essentially. But essentially, left to avoid dealing with our problems, or turn right towards the problem. We call this the corridor, sometimes of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, because why do we have problems? Sometimes it's because we're afraid, right? We don't know. And so we talk about the idea, when we turn right and go towards our problem, God will meet us there. And God will help us do it. It's a lot easier than we think it is. And that's why we're here as your coaches, to help encourage you in that process. Don't worry, God's with you, we're with you. That's how life is meant to be, not by yourself. Let some other people help you. So these are the 7 areas of life that we want to help people, you particularly, to learn and grow in: spiritual, family, social, financial, career, physical, mental. And tonight we're talking about family mostly, obviously, but we, over time, as you've seen on the website, we touch on all 7 areas. So this is just an example or a way of looking at life to deal with our challenges, trying to discern, okay, I'm not happy right now, what's going on? So you look at the 7 areas, which area am I perhaps missing something in? A lot of them are relationally related, is that the right word? Career is relational, obviously social, family is relational. Very often we have relational challenges, and so a lot of Launch Class talks about relationships. So that's just something we can refer to, and you can refer to, as we're trying to wrestle with what's going on. Do I have problems in these areas, or perhaps I have goals in these areas? It'll create stress, for sure. So what we're after is between our ears: lasting peace, happiness, confidence, fulfillment. That's what everyone's after, right? And we go about life in lots of different ways to try to find answers. So often we turn left to doing fun and pleasurable things rather than turning right and working on our problems. We turn left, we get short-term peace, happiness. We turn right, we deal with our problems. We can have long-term, lasting peace, happiness, confidence, fulfillment as we strengthen our families, our social, our career, our finances, all the areas. Physical is a big one, right? If we don't feel good, we're not healthy, we're not going to be happy. So that's just the foundation of Launch Class. And so today, obviously we're dealing on the family side. Last week we talked about finding and choosing a good mate. Very, very important part of life. So this week relates to that one. Now what's the next step after you find and choose a good mate? You get married. Like we talked, if you look at last week's video, those little kids said, at age 3, 4, or 5, I'm going to get married. I'm going to marry that person. It's our instinct to get married. So this week, marriage and parenting strategies. Next week, we'll talk about embracing adversity on your way to success. This thing called adversity is something we naturally want to avoid, but we want to talk about we can embrace it because it's actually really good for us. Part of design, part of how life is made. We need adversity to grow and to learn. So let's jump in. I think it's working here. It worked a second ago. Okay, I might have to go manual here. Sorry about this, technical difficulties. Oh, isn't that interesting? Is it on the screen? Okay. Try this. Hey. Use the mouse. Okay, sorry about that. Why is marriage and parenting important? Well, I've touched on it. It's the family is the foundational building block for our society. I think we can agree on that. Where the family goes, so goes society. And right now, one of our biggest problems in society is our divorce rate. And so that's one of our big goals in Launch Class is to help reduce the divorce rate. So this is a very important presentation, class. So our level of peace, happiness, and satisfaction is very dependent on the quality of our marriage. Would everybody agree? For sure. The high rate of divorce, like I said, one of the most harmful problems in our society because it causes more divorce. Divorce begets divorce. That's what our kids learn if we go through that. I don't want to put a guilt trip on anybody. No, it's not our desire. Our desire is to learn and hopefully navigate things. We want to help people at a young age learn some of this stuff so they can avoid some of the pitfalls that most people make. Divorce is a big one. Divorce causes more divorce, it causes unhappiness, it causes health problems. It is a foundational problem. So that's for the people going through divorce, but it also very much hurts our kids. Divorce results in higher levels of academic, behavioral, and psychological problems in our kids. Even worse than for the death of a parent. The emotional trauma that kids go through in divorce, statistically speaking, this is what I was reading, is worse than for the death of a parent as far as trauma for kids. Children of divorce are more likely to suffer abuse, poor relationships, more divorce, like I said, low self-esteem, and health issues themselves, as well as higher rates of crime, unwanted pregnancy, lower educational achievement. Kids don't thrive nearly as well, on average, in divorced families. It's just statistics. It's sad to say. So that is why this is important, why we want to help you at a younger age get some of this figured out so you can have great marriage. Great marriage begets great kids. So the roots of poor marriage. There's a number of slides here, but we'll talk about foundations first. Rick Warren says, I've heard him say this many times, he's my favorite teacher in the world, Rick Warren. He says he can summarize 2 decades or 3 decades of marriage counseling in 2 words: grow up. We kind of instinctively understand that idea. We don't like to hear it, for sure, it's true. Because our human nature is we want what we want. We want it now. We don't want to compromise. That's our nature, right? And the way Rick describes it, he says, as we mature, we become less self-centered, we're more self-centered, and become more others-focused as we grow up. Now, of course, as you could probably look around, there's a lot of examples we can see that people don't grow up. They don't learn this. Lots of reasons. We're not going to try to go there right now, but we can definitely identify that's a huge reason for relational challenges. I want what I want. I don't want to compromise. Obviously, two people aren't going to have a great relationship if that's what they're thinking, if one of them is thinking that, or both. We find, as we mature, we will find that doesn't work. That approach doesn't work. It doesn't bring happiness for us or for anybody. Having that approach that I want what I want, I'm not going to compromise. So remember, assume others, this is when we have challenges, assume others aren't in a good place, aren't in a happy place. If we deal with people in marriage or at work or anywhere, and people are not pleasant, first thing, this is what we learned back on one of our first lessons, people skills, assume others aren't in a good place. That's the first good assumption that'll help our marriage, help our relationships. Our most common fear is fear of rejection. And that's what Rick Warren says. I believe it's true. When I heard that, I could recognize that in my relationships. Yeah, that makes sense. And so when we get into a difference of opinion or an argument, sometimes people will react in a way that's not rational. Why is that? Fear of rejection. And so when you recognize it, just be aware. Well, the most common fear of us human beings is fear of rejection. Once we hear that, we can start to recognize it. We can start to be aware, start to be sensitive, start to be more compassionate towards others. Everyone is always in need of encouragement. We learned that in the people skills lesson as well. That came from Truett Cathy, founder of Chick-fil-A. He said, how do you know if someone needs encouragement? They're breathing. That's what he said. Yes, everyone always needs. Every single one of us, don't be shy, don't be embarrassed. We all need encouragement. So let's do that for each other, right? Let's do that for each other. Another good, huge piece that is a root of a poor marriage or poor relationship, but primarily marriage, is our spouse, our partner, can't meet all of our needs. We often will go into marriage thinking, this is going to solve all of my problems. I'm going to be happy forever after, right? That is our dream when we're young. That's not what marriage is designed to do. We can completely complement each other, where the husband's strong and the wife isn't, and vice versa. That's always good. But for sure, we need to understand our partner, our spouse, can't meet all of our needs. Only God can do that. And we're not going to get into depth on that today, but that is a good piece of understanding that will help us. We're setting our marriage up for failure if we have that expectation. Marriage strategies. Now it's working. A couple pages of marriage strategies. Decide, quote, we are our number one cheerleaders. Husband and wife can decide that and say that to each other. We are our number one cheerleaders. Our marriage is priceless and we will defend it vigorously. So you can see that if you're having disagreements or arguments or challenges in your marriage, you can say, hark, that's a red flag. That is not good for our marriage. We will defend it vigorously. And you can say that to each other. This is not good for us. We need to get some help or find a new way of dealing with this because this is not helping our relationship. Second, we can decide and we can show that you truly want your spouse's happiness and success. That was, I don't have that marriage book with me. I have a number of marriage books with me that I'll touch on. But that one came from a marriage book that I read. Is one sign of good, healthy marriages is two spouses that truly want their spouse's happiness and success. In other words, we're for each other. So our goal when we come together on a daily, weekly basis, one of our goals is I want to help my spouse to be more happy and successful. Now, wouldn't that be awesome to know that your husband or your wife actually truly wants you to be more happy and successful and says it? So let's talk about it. And when stuff happens that it appears that it doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel like this is happening, say it. I know one of our goals, sweetheart, is that we help each other. We want each other to be happy and successful. It doesn't feel like that right now. Bring it to the table. Bring it to the surface. Let's talk. Okay, well, let's back up. We don't want that, do we? We want for both of us to feel good about that. So let's help our spouse to get there, to be happy and successful. This shows, obviously it shows that we love and cherish them if that's what we're doing, if we're striving to help them to be happy and successful. Get good at conflict resolution. We've touched on this already, but here's a couple of ideas. We can refer back to this PowerPoint. It'll be on the website. The other exercises, the study material will be on the website that went out before class. This video will be on the website. This is just reference material. I don't want to be the guru. Our coaches don't want to be the guru. In other words, that you need to come back to us for the answers. We want to point you to really good material that you can go to anytime you want. So get good at conflict resolution. Here's a couple of ideas. Try asking questions to better understand your spouse. Obviously, it's hard for men and women to understand each other. So if you're at a point where you're having trouble or you're starting to have an argument of some kind, take a step back and ask questions. Don't feel you have to defend yourself. Ask questions. Help me understand where you're thinking. Help me understand your thought process. Ask questions. That'll kind of cool things down a little bit. First, listen without judgment, without being defensive or making excuses. That's what we learned in our men's group. Is listen. This is what we men learned. Is don't worry. God made you with broad shoulders. Just let her talk. It might sound like she's out to lunch or being disrespectful or whatever. Don't worry about it. You have broad shoulders. You're not going to die. Let her talk. Because it's one of the things we learn is ladies, the way they're naturally made, they need to talk more than men on average. So guys, let them talk. Listen without judgment, defensiveness, or making excuses, which is hard. It was hard for me to learn that. Listen without judgment, defensiveness, or making excuses, because sometimes it feels like you're being attacked. Now this goes both ways, but it for sure relates to this gals. It'll be on the next slide as well. We'll touch on this idea. So anger is almost always selfish and wrong. We have this problem. There's a lot of anger in our society right now. Go to social media, a lot of angry people, isn't there? Anger is almost always selfish and wrong. There's a place for anger if you see somebody being hurt, so trying to protect somebody. There's a place for anger. Almost always it's selfish and wrong. Just recognize it. If you have an anger challenge in your relationship, recognize it. It's wrong. It's selfish and it's wrong and it's hurtful. So call attention to it. Say, this isn't right. It's not good. Let's deal with it. Let's talk about it. Do we need to get some help for it? Thirdly, look past bad behavior and care about the person who is probably hurting. A very good rule of thumb. Rick Warren loved to say this over and over again. Hurt people, hurt people. So when you see somebody, some bad behavior, just recognize it. Instead of reacting with anger, say to yourself, I wonder, maybe they're hurting. Maybe they had a bad day or a bad thing going on at home or at work or you name it, right? Have compassion. Look past bad behavior and care about the person who is probably hurting. So ask them, what's happening? In other words, don't react to the bad behavior. Ask them, what's happening for you? Who should be the one? This is what I have on the board here. We'll just touch on the board here briefly. Who should be the one to make the first move to reconcile when we're having call it a challenge, an argument, a fight? So this is called the crazy cycle. This book here, Love and Respect, it talks about that. But Emerson Eggerichs, he coined this crazy cycle. So he says that women need love more than anything else, more than oxygen. They need love and closeness. And men need respect more than oxygen. And so the idea is, if all of a sudden the poor guy feels he's not getting respect from his wife, it's like she's stepping on her oxygen hose, his oxygen hose. He can't breathe. And that's literally how it feels. I can tell you that from experience. Or vice versa. If the wife feels she's not getting the love and the closeness that she needs, same thing. It feels like someone's standing on her oxygen hose. Can't breathe. What happens when we can't breathe? We react irrationally, right? So this is what he called the crazy cycle. And so normally, call it earlier in our marriage, we're giving each other the love and respect we need. And we go around and we build up, and marriage is wonderful, right? We get what we need. It feels great, because we do need it, for sure. But now, what happens when we stop getting it? Like, anything can cause it. Anything, in theory, can cause. She's not having a good day at work. She's not going to perhaps give him what he thinks he needs, or vice versa. So all of a sudden, one of the party perceives they're not getting what they need. He thinks he's not getting the respect he needs. He thinks subconsciously even, she's not giving me the respect I need. He withdraws. He stops giving her the love and the closeness that she needs. She's not happy. When she's not happy, it's pretty natural that she's not going to give him the respect that he thinks he wants and needs. And so this crazy cycle starts spiraling in a negative direction. That's why it's called the crazy cycle. So, what do you do? What do you do in that scenario? Well, who should be the first one to make the first move? Well, this book here, this is a book we'll touch on as well. This is a marriage book called The Man of Her Dreams, The Woman of His, by Joel and Kathy Davidson. They wrote this book mostly for men, but it's for women too. This book would say, who should be the one to make the first move during the crazy cycle? This book would say the man should, the husband should. So guys, if you read this book, there you go. Others, I've heard, would say, and this goes for any relationship, who should make the first move? How about this one? The mature one. How's that? Okay, who wants to be the mature one? That makes it a little bit more palatable to make the first move, doesn't it? Somebody's got to make this first move, because we've all been in relationships, and we can say with certainty, we can point out all the other person's faults and errors where they were wrong. I'm not making the first move, they are wrong. And here's why. Well, what happens when you're in a marriage and you can both do that? You can both name all these things the other person's wrong. Why should I make the first move? They should be apologizing. Now we're stuck. Who should make the first move? We have two answers, the mature one or the husband. Those are the answers. But here's how we do it. We say to ourselves, okay, I'm going to be someone's got to do something. And we might pray about it. We might ask God for help, for wisdom, for the right words. We might talk to our friend, a counselor, or coach. That's what we're here for, talk to a coach. But we might think, okay, I'm 90% right. What's the 10% that I could possibly apologize for? Right? 20%, 10%, 5%, doesn't matter. Think of something that you could apologize for and go ahead and do it. That diagram we showed there says that when we do that, God will be with us. God will bless it. God will bless that effort and help to heal the relationship. And guess what? I've been through this. Most of the people have been through this. When you stop and think about it and you have some coaching and some direction on this, when you do that, what does the other person do? Oh, big relief. They usually apologize for something that they did. They say, I'm sorry too. And guess what? Now we're back on track. You know, now we can kiss and make up, right? So that's just an idea, a tool that we can use. Continued. Now we're talking about this book. This quote is the foundation, is the key sentence for this book. Like I say, that's towards men, right? They say, men, if you will strive to hear your wife's heart and meet her needs, you'll have the woman of your dreams. Joel and Kathy Davidson. What does that look like? Well, it says that our wives need us as men to strive to hear her heart and to meet her needs. Now, some women's needs are common to women. Some are specific to our wife, right? We need to strive to get to know our wives. And of course, the flip side is for sure, wives need to strive to get to know their husbands. That's a foundational, there's 4. I have 5 marriage books here. And that's essentially what we're talking about, is we need to try to get to know our spouse, understand some of these relationship things, because we didn't come into this world knowing these things, and we likely didn't learn them in our family growing up. We're really, really fortunate if we saw some of these things modeled in our family growing up, but usually we didn't. So we need to learn. And so that's the first one. Men, if you'll strive to hear your wife's heart and meet her needs, you'll have the woman of your dreams. The measure of how well we're doing is, does she feel loved and cherished? I remember it so clearly, it was going back 3.5 years ago. We were studying this book in the men's group, and one of the guys in the group, one of the guys who was a little older, more outspoken, and I respect him, he said, I don't know if I buy this book, that line, that idea. He said, my brother-in-law has bent over backwards for his wife for over 2 decades, and she still treats him like crap. Ooh. So one of the leaders of the group said, well, Don, do you think she feels cherished? Don paused. Don said, I don't think so. Oh, light bulbs went on for all of us in that room that day. Oh, so we all realized that we can do the right things with the wrong attitude, and we get no points. Hark! You can do all the right things, taking out the garbage, bathing the kids, you name it. With the wrong attitude, we get no points. So, the measure of how well we're doing is, does our wife feel loved and cherished? So ask her, do you feel loved and cherished, sweetheart? And be willing to actually listen and strive to help her to feel loved and cherished. Now, there's another point here, I think later on, that it's not fully up to, obviously, we had touched on it already, that a husband can meet all of his wife's needs. We understand that. Only God can actually fill most of those important gaps. So we shouldn't put all the burden on the husband to meet all of the wife's needs and vice versa. But anyway, this is a foundational idea that really, really helps men to understand what they can do to have a better marriage. She needs love and closeness as much as air. We talked about that. He needs to feel respected as much as air. That's from that book. I'm going to put these books down here. Okay, so that's that book. I'm going to touch on these books. This is another great one. These are just super popular marriage books. That's why I brought them. They're in this suitcase here, so you're welcome to borrow for a week or two and read them. You're welcome to do that. His Needs, Her Needs, very, very popular one by Willard Harley Jr. And it goes into some of the same ideas. This one talks about just love and respect. This has a list of about 5 or 6 needs that for wives and for husbands that they need. And we need to learn them. That's really, truly want to help our spouse to be happy and successful. Let's learn what they need. This one's called the 5 Love Needs of Men and Women. So it's similar. It's a list. The 5 Love. Very popular. They've actually spoken. I've heard them speak before at our church. Gary and Barbara Roseberg. Really, really popular. It's groundbreaking research that will change your marriage. So we need to go to school on our marriage is what we're talking about, right? Then lastly, there was a book for men. This is one for women, Becoming the Woman of His Dreams by Sharon James. She's really popular on that particular topic. This is just one of her books, Becoming the Woman of His Dreams. So, other ideas, make time to invest in your marriage. Ideas, daily conversation. We've learned that now, guys. Our wives need daily conversation. Weekly dates. Very, very, all these marriage gurus say, date your spouse. What attracted you to them in the first place? Go back to where you were. Take some time together. Date your spouse. Weekly dates, biannual getaways. Regular marriage enrichment could be small group Bible studies with couples, other couples. You can learn from each other. You can study this kind of stuff with other couples. Seminars, courses, read marriage books. We talked about that. I just went through some examples. Okay. Foundations of good parenting. Now we're on to the parenting subject. And as you'll see, it connects. How we do in our marriage connects directly to the benefits for the kids. So give the kids an example of a good marriage. That's the first thing, and one of the best things we can do for our kids. Give the kids a good example of a good marriage. So we talked about that, but here's just some things we can go refer to, and this is a checkup we can go to every now and then. Be kind and respectful always, no exceptions. That's a biblical principle. I learned that many years ago, and it's really helped me a lot. It's helped me measure myself. If I'm thinking of doing something, is that kind and respectful? If I said something wrong, was that kind and respectful? If it wasn't kind, or if it was disrespectful, it might be a good idea to apologize. So, 3 things. Be kind and respectful always, no exceptions. Really good rule of thumb. Show the kids, in other words, what appropriate affection looks like. They need to see it modeled in the home, in the family. Show them how to handle differences of opinion. We talked about that, conflict resolution. They need to witness that and see that so that they will be able to learn and do it. Eventually, they're going to be on their own, right? Or are they going to learn how to do conflict resolution effectively? The best thing is at home, right, from their parents. So that's a foundational aspect of good parenting. Avoid parental conflict in front of the kids. This is huge. Psychology tells us it's one of the biggest problems for kids is conflict, parental conflict. Because if you put yourself in a kid's, try to remember when you were a kid, your security, all of your security is wrapped up in the home environment. You don't know, you have no ability beyond this family to cope, right? You're dependent on your parents for everything. So parental conflict creates huge insecurity for kids. So it's a big no-no. Avoid parental conflict in front of the kids. Don't fight in front of the kids. Don't argue in front of the kids. That's a good one. Pray together instead. Yeah, kids will duplicate what they see. If kids see a lot of anger and fighting at home, that's what they'll learn. That's what they'll duplicate. And on, as you know. Pray together instead. If you want to fight, instead, pray together. Show the kids that example. Pray together when we have conflict. That's a phenomenal example. Other things kids need, they need lots of attention, affirmation, and encouragement. We would like our kids to have a strong self-esteem so they can be confident at school, eventually at work, eventually in their relationships. Give them lots of attention, affirmation, and encouragement. Kids need that. They need that from us, that we can give that to them. Sometimes individually, sometimes as a group. We'll touch on a couple more on the next slide here, but lots of I love yous, lots of I'm proud of yous, lots of I like the way you do this, lots of God made you special in this way, in that way. Affirm their strengths as opposed to focusing on their weaknesses. Parenting strategies. We talked about this. Kids really need words of affirmation every day. So I'm going to refer to this IMUM article that was in our study material before class. 15 positive things to say to your child. And here's a couple of examples. I'm not going to touch on all of them. But here's what it said at the top of the page. No matter if your children are leaving for college or are still toddlers, your words have the power to shape who they are. And that's actually biblical too. The Bible says life and death are in the power of the tongue. We get what we speak. If we speak life, we get life, particularly with our kids. If we, like so many kids, we've heard these stories that their parent or somebody close to them, but usually a parent, said something to them when they were young, like, you're not going to amount to anything or something like that, or you're a loser, or you name it. But those things stick with our kids for the rest of their lives. And then they need counseling when when they get older, or they have marital problems, all kinds of things. So our words have the power to shape who our kids are. Our words are really, really important. So this is from the iMom article. Words like, I love being your mom, or your dad. You're a gift to our family. I like the way you worked hard to such and such. Guess what? They'll work hard again, wouldn't they, if they hear that? You can tell me anything. In other words, you're not going to get in trouble. You bring me so much joy to my life. The world is a better place with you in it. Would you like to hear that? We all need that, but our kids really need that, right? I'm always here for you. I love you and I like you. You are the best son or daughter in the world. Lastly, I believe in you. Powerful, powerful words. I believe in you. You can do it. That's why launch class is called You Can Do It, also known as launch class. We all need to hear that, but especially kids. You can do it. So depending on how many kids you have and how busy you are, sometimes the only one-on-one time they may get with you is at tuck-in time, at bedtime. So that can be a very, very sacred, priceless time, tuck-in time. Make the most of the tuck-in time with your kids. That's what I've tried to do. They soak it up. It really helps their self-esteem. That one-on-one time, saying these kind of things, read the Bible together, pray together, you name it, for sure. But talk to them about real life. My parents were divorced when I was in grade 2, and we were the only two of us, myself and my younger sister. So I guess I was like the person that my mom could talk to. So I remember that. She modeled this for me. She'd tuck us in, and she'd talk to me like an adult, looking back on it. And I remember being in grade 3 and being kind of mad that she did this, because I remember thinking, I'm too mature to goof off and have fun like the other kids. My mom made me too mature because she tucked me in and she talked to me like a grown-up, like an adult. But it really helped my self-esteem. It really did. So make the most of tuck-in time with kids, because then I'll have some daily input from mom and some dad, and from dad ideally. So that's that one. Kids need consistency in order to thrive. And this is that one that was also on the study material before class from All Pro Dad. So these are two phenomenal websites. iMom, it's for moms obviously, to help moms be good wives and mothers. And then All Pro Dad is the best website I know to help dads be better husbands and fathers. So this article is called 10 Consistencies Your Kids Need at Home. And here's just a couple of examples. I'm going to flash through the first 10. Consistency in parenting offers stability to your kids, obviously, but kids really need that. We touched on that. Each person in your family is unique and has different needs. So, first one, mornings. Have morning routine sets up a successful day. Mealtime. Show them how to sit and eat dinner at the table. A lot of families don't do that. He talked about how his family didn't do that. It was really problematic. We need to be reasonable and flexible along with consistent mealtime. Bedtime, we talked about that. Discipline, make sure discipline is consistent. The punishment fits the crime. If we're not consistent, one kid will be feeling ripped off. Kids have a really good sense of justice, don't they? Chores, consistency here creates kids who are disciplined and work hard. Kids need chores, absolutely, they need chores for sure. By all means, let them go make some of their own money. That would be along the same lines. Go shovel walks and leaves, grass, make some money. I did that when I was a kid. That was really good for me. Snacks, we need disciplined snack time. They talked about having problems for snacks. So now they said every day at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. is snack time. They're allowed to have a snack. And it's amazing how quickly the kids learned how to tell time when they started this. Technology. Without consistency, you will find yourself putting an iPad in their hands every time they throw a fit, and this will reinforce bad behavior. So there needs to be rules around technology. Consistency around technology. Family time, consistent family time. Obviously, supper time is a huge one. Respect your wife or your husband. We already talked about that one. And lastly, attitude. This is a good one, number 10. You can control every situation or circumstance. You cannot control every situation or circumstance, but you can be consistently in control of your attitude. When you establish a consistently positive attitude, you bring a presence of stability and structure that rubs off on your kids' attitudes. A lot of success people have said it all starts with attitude, right? So we'll have fewer problems if we do these. Don't worry about, if you haven't done these well, don't worry about being perfect. You can go back to these slides, you can go back to this stuff anytime you want, and you can check on it and say, how can we improve? So here's the bottom line in both marriage and parenting. And this is why we would say We don't do big guilt trips here. It's good to learn we've been doing something wrong that help us to improve, but we don't want to do big guilt trips here. And this, for sure, this area of having a great marriage and being great parents, we can't do it in our own strength. That is a huge piece that we want to get across. Doing marriage and parenting well requires more than we have on our own, in our own strength. Here's a quote from the Bible: we can do all things through Christ who gives us strength. Philippians 4:13. And that's what we believe here for sure. All of the coaches would tell you they can't live this life, the good life, and have success in all areas without God, for sure. And marriage and parenting are hugely important, and we can't do it without God. And if you're not familiar with that idea, don't worry about it right now. Just hang around and ask your coaches, get some ideas. How can I learn and grow in that area? We can't be consistently kind and respectful without God's help. We can't be loving when we're being attacked, or so it feels like we're being attacked, without God's help. Good. And this is a good quote from Bill Bright. I remember it from over the years for some reason. And don't worry about this word sin, but here's what he said: God empowers us to love the sinner more than he loves his sin. Now, Bill Bright was referring to someone who might have an addiction problem, but we have lots of, anger's an addiction, food's an addiction. We have lots of addictions in our life, don't we? But even bad behavior is an addiction, or at least a bad habit. But Bill Bright said, God empowers us to love the sinner more than he loves his sin. Take out that word sin. God empowers us to love the person who's behaving badly more than they love behaving badly. And so we can't do that in our strength. I can't do that in my strength. Not consistently, for sure. We need God's help. But God designed marriage and parenting. And we can have some faith and some strength and some comfort in that. This is by design. What we learned in our men's group is, well, some of the books would say, if you know one man, you know them all. So we look around the table and we say, wow, you're a skunk, aren't you? But what we do learn in small groups and these kind of environments is that we all have very similar problems in life. We're not alone. And with God, with others, we can definitely navigate and have a lot more success. But marriage and parenting, for sure, God designed, so we can trust Him. So we're going to go to a small group discussion. But first, I'll just talk about the questions here a little bit. What we want you to do in your small groups, grab the paper, make some notes, and talk about this. Take turns sharing with each other some of what you learned and liked about today's lesson. We always do that. That's kind of how we start in our small groups. The benefit of small groups is this is not two-way interaction. You're just listening to me right now, right? The benefit of small groups is we can talk and we can share, we can hear how other people think, and we can get practice articulating our thoughts. Here's what I don't like, here's what I like, here's my experience, here's what I'd like to improve. I like that idea, I don't know how to apply it. We can do that in our small groups. And then also, share one idea that you learned today that you will try applying this week. Just pick one, anyone. Because that's how we can really, it's called accountability in our little groups. We can help each other, and we can cheer each other up. We can encourage each other. Thirdly, if you have time, share about a past mistake or plan for improvement. And it's really easy for us in our men's group. I can remember talking about our past mistakes. Yeah, I messed up in that area. I'm glad I learned that. I'm going to go and I'm going to ask my wife to talk and not interrupt her. How about that one? Next, welcome to Launch Class. We encourage you to be part of the mission. Our mission is to improve society by helping young people, young adults, get more successfully launched. And so if you can think of anybody else who might benefit from this message, share it with them. It'll be on the website. And join the mission to Launch Class, tell others, invite a friend to next week. Next week we'll be talking about embracing adversity on your way to success. All right, let's take a break. We'll go to second part. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.